Aaron Sindelar, Sustainability Lead with Central Valley Ag. And today I'm here with Kellen Jorgensen. Kellen is a farmer in the Exeter area. And today we're standing in a field that's actually a no-till soybean field. This is first year no-till for Kellen. And we're just going to talk about today some of the conservation practices that Kellen is doing, as well as why he's doing them and what are some of the things that he's working around to try to do that. Today we're standing in a field where this is a first year no-till field where Kellen planted into soybeans. And Kellen, what I'm really kind of curious about is what drove you to kind of decide to convert this field to no-till and plant into these standing corn stalks?
Well, I think a lot of it at the current time was the terrain that we had of the farm. Just wanted the least amount of erosion as possible going into planting, and ahead of some big, hope we got some big spring rains, and we did. And I think just some advantages of not disturbing some of your overwinter moisture, having a nice seed bed to kind of go plant into, and not having to pump a bunch of water early on in the year. So.
You know, I know that one reason why some farmers are a little bit gun shy to plant into standing corn stalks especially is they don't like how their beans look early on. You kind of have that period where you've got ugly looking beans. What were some of the management things that you did to kind of be able to prep for planting your soybeans into no-till?
Well, I tell you, the last couple of years we've planted our soybeans first. So I think the more heat units you got on them beans early, I think they're gonna look better all year. Obviously, we try to harvest our beans then earlier than our corn crop, so that's why we've planted a little shorter season bean to try to capture some of that early price and just spread out harvest a little bit.
So this isn't your first field that you've got no-till into corn. For that grower that's looking at possibly making that change, they're kind of on the fence. What kind of advice do you have for them to kind of make sure they get off on the right foot if they're going to get into no-till?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you look at your ROI over years. I think there's going to be a lot less herbicide maybe put on where you're not disturbing and overturning the ground and opening up a whole new seed bed for weed pressure and some of those sort of things. Anything you can do to conserve moisture, I think, is going to benefit you in the long run.
I know another big thing for growers is they always have that concern of that, well, I've got to go out and buy a new planter, or I've got to do this and that. I've got to make wholesale changes when it comes to my machinery. Is that something you had to do, or were the modifications kind of minor? Do you have any suggestions on that side?
Well, I think, some of the newer add-on options as far as clean sweeps and some of those different things on the planters have certainly helped. It sure helped minimize passes through the field, which in turn should net more money because the price of fuel and everything, and just labor, from a labor standpoint, it's really helped us, I guess.
So first year no-till in this field, and then to kind of even ramp up your conservation practices, you're actually planning on putting a cover crop onto this field after you take the soybeans off this fall. Let's kind of talk about that side of the equation of what was kind of the driving factor of you looking at putting a cover crop here?
Well, you look at trends and kind of what the universities have kind of been promoting here in the past couple of years, and I think there's a lot of correlation to yield, and I think there's a huge correlation or a lot of merit to just having a living organism on your soil and total overall plant health. Anytime you can have a living organism, I think on dirt for an extended longer period of time, I think it's going to promote plant health for future years.
So basically kind of what you're looking to get out of your cover crop when you're putting it in is you really want to try to build your organic matter, kind of your soil quality. And that really leads into, what do you want to get out of a cover crop? When I'm talking to a grower like you and he or she says to me, I want to do a cover crop, my first question for them is, what do you want to achieve? And what you're talking about is on the organic matter side, which is one advantage you get. Another one could be the nutrient cycling. That's where we can maybe increase your nitrogen content of the soil with adding a legume. or even maybe you want to break up some soil compaction or just improve your overall soil tilth. I remember a few years ago, actually a field not too far from here, we had a no-till situation where grower kind of created an issue where he had some subsoil compaction, didn't want to break out the tillage equipment and wreck his no-till, and that's how we got around it, was actually planting some taproot crops, like some tillage radishes and things like that, and that's what really kind of helped us get around that. So obviously you see the advantages of the cover crops. What is keeping you from putting a cover crop on every single acre that you farm today?
Well, I think a lot of it's just, you're back to that, a person's fall seems to drag out a long time, and there isn't enough manpower or a lot of times the resources to get a cover crop put on an adequate enough time after the crop's harvested. I think that's kind of a downfall, but other guys in the area have got some machines and are willing to come in and drill and do some different things. I think a person should try to utilize that, and then just mostly pooling resources with different people to try to get it in early, so you can get some good heat units on it before the snow flies. So
we talked about, you hit on the one big one, we talked about the logistics side. What about the cost? I know for some growers the cost can really be kind of an issue. How do you view the cost of the cover crop in your overall farming system?
Well, I think the cost is always usually the biggest determining factor on doing something. I guess the biggest thing that I've noticed is the herbicide factor then the following year. Planting into that standing rye or radish or turnip or whatever cover crop the person so chose. I think there's a huge herbicide advantage to that following year, and just shaving off some costs that way, I think it'll in the end you'll come out ahead.
Sure. In this field that we're actually in, this is one where we actually have it in a program that you're partnering with us, the CVA, and to kind of see what type of a carbon credit we can maybe generate it off of this field, depending on what happens with those markets down the road. So, you've brought it, you hit on the right spot about, trying to find what kind of programs that might be available, whether they're maybe an NRCS program or maybe if these carbon programs come to fruition down the road. So hopefully a lot of those things, and then you kind of talked about those advantages that you saw with not only improving your soil quality, but also maybe reducing some of your costs on the herbicide program that might actually kind of help balance everything out. Kellen, thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions about conservation practices, contact your field sales agronomist, and thank you for watching Agronomy Focus.